Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Birds of the Roundtable. Welcome in. We have a fun show for you tonight. It's the first of our series of shows where we are ranking our top 16 quarterbacks. Joining us, as always, David at PHL Eagle News. David, what's going on?
Doing great. Ready to roast everyone's lists with my fine work ethic and study habits and show my great ingenuity of all of my quarterback rankings.
There you go. Love that. Also joining us, Shane. Shane Half NFL. Welcome. How are you, buddy?
Doing good, man. Always happy to talk about some quarterbacks in a safe space where surely no one will screen grab our lists and yell at us online.
No, there's no shot of it. And, of course, finally, leading off, we have Dives at Mr. Crackpot. What is going on?
What's going on, guys? We are fully outside of my comfort zone doing these rankings, so I am ready for all the comments making fun of my list. So let's go.
Cannot wait. So the way we decided to do these lists, and we're going to start with the quarterbacks and kind of continue with other positions here as we, go along through the weeks. But this is, as of this year, 1 year, where this isn't like would you start a franchise with? This is going into 2025, how our rankings are. So with that being said, let's start at number 16. Who wants to go first with their number 16?
I'll go.
All right. Babs, who do you got at number 16?
I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence. I feel like we haven't talked about this guy in the playoffs in forever. He's a guy that is in a really bad situation, some bad tendencies the last couple of years, 24th in EPA per play. And in 2024, I don't even know what this guy is anymore. I think Doug Peterson was just fired. The team is just a hot mess. And I remember just a few years ago, this guy was so far at the top of the list. So crazy fall.
Did you just say, I think Doug Peterson was just fired?
Wasn't he fired in like January or something?
He was, yes.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. It looks like, Shane, you have him at 13. I have him at 14. And David, you pretty much say F Sunshine. Not on my list. Shane, why do you have him at number 13?
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence, he's gone from being like generational touted prospect to fringe bust label. And I don't think that's entirely fair because he's been in terrible circumstances with Urban Meyer. We all thought Doug Peterson was going to be a great hire, and that just sort of flamed out like it did in Philly. And so the further away we get from the Eagles Super Bowl under Doug Peterson, the more bizarre it gets that it happened. But for Lawrence, I'm not done with Lawrence, but this is the year for him. He's got a really good number one receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. now. He's got a new coaching staff coming in. Like, I know Urban Meyer was bad, but if you have three coaches in a row that you just can't make it work, maybe you're the common denominator. So there's some guys higher on my list that also have not had a lot of success in the NFL yet. However, I think they've just been in bad situations, whereas Lawrence has been in some bad situations. And also he just plays like a bonehead sometimes. And I wish he would knock it off. So I've got him at 13. I could see him easily in my top 10 after this season with a good season. I can see him out of my top 16 if he continues to just not be able to get it done.
Yeah, that's kind of why I have him at number 14. He's definitely kind of at that point in his career where he's got to make it happen. And, they got a new a coach coming from Tampa Bay, offensive coordinator, and they added Travis Hunter. So he has yet another weapon to go along with Brian Thomas, who, looks to take another leap in year two. So he's got some weapons. We'll see what he can do with them. And, yeah, I'm thinking that he has a decent season. He's definitely going to be moving up my rankings for sure. But he's got to put it all together.
Yep.
David, any reason why you decided not to have him on the list?
I mean, he's got talent, that's undeniable, but he just has been wildly inconsistent. He's got weapons like Shane mentioned, Brian Thomas Jr. Now they've added Travis Hunter. They have one of the Cohen brothers as their new offensive coordinator. No relation, Liam Cohen. But until he actually proves it, I just can't put him up there. I think there were 16 other quarterbacks who have fared better and who, quite frankly, are just more deserving of the ranking.
Gotcha. Understandable. So, all right, David, we're going to stay with you. Who was your number 16 quarterback?
I literally am guessing, but I think it's Kyler. Yeah, good. Kyler Murray. Yeah, he finally stayed healthy last season, which has been pretty much the knock on him. I mean, he just had multiple injury, plagued seasons. He has Jonathan Gannon as his head coach over there, but he has weapons, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to make him look a lot better. That guy's coming in this season completely jacked. They also have, a decent running game with James Conner and Trey Benson. They have Trey McBride at tight end. Zay Jones and Michael Wilson, I think, are the other two wideouts that they have over there. So I just think if he just showed that he stayed healthy, if he can do it again, I think that he can, earn his spot there. And he's got some really good weapons. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has the potential to be a generational talent, in my opinion. So it's time for him to utilize him.
Nice. Yeah, it looks like Dives, you and I have him at 15. Why'd you throw him at 15?
Similar to Trevor Lawrence. Like, he just hasn't been able to get it done. He's 36, 45, and 1 in his career, and his deep ball is not good enough. I expected more between Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. Hopefully that gets righted in 2025. But Trey McBride's nice. I'm curious how a guy like Benson? No, not Benson. Benson. Yeah, we went to the Cardinals, right?
Yeah.
And how he kind of fits that passing game as well, because he's so explosive as a runner and as a receiver. He was one of my favorites in the draft last year. So hoping for more from Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison, but just like Trevor Lawrence, he just needs to get it done and show more consistency.
Yeah, that's pretty similar thought process for me as well. It's, you definitely hoped for more with Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, two great weapons there in Arizona. And it's unfortunate that the team just hasn't really had success with Kyler. I just think, he needs to stay healthy and I think a little more team success, and that might actually go a long way for Kyler. But Shane, you didn't have him on your list. Any reason why?
Yeah, I think at this point I'm kind of over Kyler Murray. I think mobile quarterbacks give you a certain floor, and I just don't know how high the ceiling is with Kyler. It doesn't help that Cliff Kingsbury went to Washington and had the year he had with Jaden Daniels, and I think maybe there's something to Kingsbury's just a good OC, but not a good head coach, and so that could certainly be at play as well. But Kyler's had weapons. He's had different coaches. He's had different schemes, and it just hasn't turned into anything. And so, honestly, at the end of the day, maybe you just can't be 5'10" and be an NFL quarterback. And that honestly might be it with Kyler. I mean, you think about other quarterbacks that we've just, this guy's short, but he makes it work. Like Drew Brees was 6'1", Jalen's 6'1". At 5'10", maybe it's just prohibitively short. And that's kind of my thought process with Kyler now. Doesn't play from the pocket well. Wasn't able to connect with Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. So I just kind of think I'm out on Kyler Murray at this point. And I'm an OU guy. And so, I loved watching him in college, but I just don't think he's it in the NFL.
All right. Even with the OU bias. Got it. Shane, we'll stick with you here as well, and let us know your number 16.
Yeah, my number 16 is Brock Purdy, and I'll plug him in where you guys had him on your lists while I talk if I can. But there was Brock Purdy was the litmus test for how you view quarterbacks for a couple of years, and he played in such a loaded offense with one of the best play callers that we have in the NFL, and he did good, but it was like how much of that was him. And in a lot of ways, and Mark pointed this out to me earlier, but I think it makes sense. Like, even though the 49ers kind of imploded this year, it was almost more impressive what Brock Purdy did, because, you Debo Samuel was awful. Brandon Ayuk got hurt. Christian McCaffrey got hurt. The offensive line started to fall apart. And it felt like he started to contribute a little bit more to the offense. And now I do think there's a certain ceiling. And that's why I've got him at 16. Like, I don't think he's going to be a guy that, I certainly think the 49ers are going to regret paying him what they're paying him a couple of years from now. But I think he's a solid quarterback with some solid traits that he could have the Jared Goff arc in the NFL if he continues to start, continues to get experience. He can be that type of quarterback that you can go make some runs with. But I always think he's going to need some extra help around him in a way that some of the other guys I have above him don't.
Gotcha. All right, Dives, defend yourself. Number 9 for Brock Purdy.
I really struggled on where to put him, but like Shane mentioned, like Jared Goff is a really good comp for Brock Purdy because I think in terms of like upside, I'm not really high on him, but when it comes to things like processing and fit and efficiency with Shanahan, like I think that's all there for him to really turn out a solid year if it all comes together. And I just had him a little higher than some of these other guys because I do shit on Brock Purdy a lot, along with another quarterback that's in the NFC East, but I do respect them. And I just want to throw that up. I want to make sure that's represented.
All right. David, 13?
Yeah, I think we've seen what his ceiling is. He's a product of the system. He fares a lot better when he's surrounded by talent. A lot of the same things you probably likely hear from opposing fan bases about Jalen Hurts. But that's kind of how I see him. I agree with what Shane said. He kind of, he's at his ceiling already. I think you've seen what he's capable of doing. Can he be a system quarterback that wins games like Goff did? Of course he can, but I don't think he is the talent and the difference maker on the team. That's why I had him at 13.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to my thought process too. Is I think everybody just kind of instantly fell in love with this kid, and for whatever reason, maybe that's kind of why I maybe pushed him down even further. So because of that, I kind of maybe tried to right the ship there just to not allow my bias to drop him. But yeah, you're right. I don't think I don't think we're going to see all-star Pro Bowls at a Brock Purdy anytime soon. So all right, I guess it's my turn for number 16. And speaking of NFC East quarterback, Mr. Dakota Prescott, which somebody clearly loves them some Cowboys. I had him at 16. Again, I think with the injury last year, obviously, and he's been injured often, quasi recently, and I just think usually he's just kind of a stat patter in my opinion. Not that he's a bad quarterback, but I think he gets overhyped for leading the league in passing yards when on a season when they were the Cowboys were down most of their games and they were throwing the ball. And again, it's not that I don't think that Dak Prescott is a bad quarterback, but when it comes time to it, he doesn't win, and he doesn't win important games. So that's kind of why I have him down as low as I do. This is wins are the most important stat in my opinion, and he doesn't really do it when you need him. So that's me. David, you had him at 15.
Yeah, it's hard to have him much higher. He's coming off a season-ending injury. In 2023, he was in the top 4 of the MVP conversation. So he does have talent, but at the same time, you mentioned a stat patter. He does thrive against weaker opponents, and there's a reason that he's 2-5 in the playoffs because he hasn't been able to rise when the competition does. So that's why I had him at 15.
All right, Shane.
Yeah, I've got him at 12. For a long time, I think I was like the guy on Eagles Twitter that was like, okay, I get it's a rivalry, but Dak Prescott's really good. And he's a guy that I really like watching play. I think he's a really cerebral player. He throws a really good seam ball, but the mobility hasn't been what it was early in his career pre-injury, and he's missed significant time 3 out of the last 5 years. And so you start to get into yeah, he hasn't had the greatest play callers. In 2023, when he played the full season, he threw for 4,500 yards and 36 touchdowns. But he just hasn't been consistent in terms of health, in terms of how he's played, and then most importantly, how he's performed in the postseason. At the end of the day, you want to win. You want to win games in January, and he's, like David said, he's 31-year-old quarterback that has 2 playoff wins despite playing on some loaded teams. And so I can't put him a lot higher than 12. I think he's a really good quarterback. He's just not the guy that I would want in the postseason. So that's why I've got him down a little lower than I would have had a couple of years ago.
Gotcha. And Dibes, tell everybody why you love the Cowboys.
Yeah, clearly, coming out of the closet here, big time Cowboys fan over here. But I did put him at 8 because we have seen how good he can be. I do give him a little slack with how much of a mess that organization is. It's a hot mess, and we'll see what George Pickens does with this offense. But like you all said, at the end of the day, he's got to prove he can do it against the best of the best. But when it comes to efficiency, when it comes to leadership, he does have a lot of skills, especially at getting the ball out fast and those sort of things. So at the end of the day, I am pretty high on him. He's in that same tier as Brock Purdy for me. Like he's just kind of a good quarterback. The caveat here, though, he's making $60 million now per year. So is he that true championship QB1? I don't think so. So he's at 8 for me.
Yeah, not at $60 million. That's a little ridiculous. So, by the way, all I heard was Dibes just go, "We them boys." So,
We can edit that in later.
Yeah, we will definitely. All right, let's move to Shane's number 15. Who do you got?
Yeah, I've got Geno Smith at number 15. I feel like I'm a bit of a Geno Smith truther, but I see David has him in his top as well at number 14. And I think that Geno Smith, he's a great story, right? Breaking out in Seattle like he did so late in his career. But I think he's a little underrated in terms of what he does to mitigate pressure. That Seattle offensive line was not very good over the last couple of seasons. And I think Geno Smith did a lot to alleviate that. And I think you're going to see that this year. I think you'll see the impact he had when you watch Sam Darnold play behind that same offensive line, because Sam Darnold can't mitigate pressure at all, as we saw down the stretch last year. So I'm excited to see what he does in Las Vegas. He's going to have Ashton Genty, so presumably one of the top run games in the league. He's going to have Brock Bowers, who is probably the best tight end in the league. And so he's got some weapons, and I'm excited to see what he can do in a new place, because, he got the breakout in Seattle, but I think he can improve even more in Las Vegas this year.
Yeah, for sure. David, you got him at 14. What's your thoughts?
A lot of what Shane said, I think a lot of his problems and issues came from the offensive line. Over the past 2 years per PFF, he was the 6th best passer in the NFL, which is pretty impressive. His passing grade was almost identical to Patrick Mahomes over that same period of time. He protects the ball. He's good, generating big plays. And I think, like Shane mentioned about having Genty in the running game, that's going to open up a lot of, plays for him, despite the fact that his wide receiving core is probably a lot more insufficient than what he's used to. But he does have a quarterback best friend over there in Brock Bowers. So I expect him to have a pretty good season.
Gotcha. Dibes, any reason why you kept Geno off your list?
Yeah, no disrespect to Geno Smith. I think he's probably underrated, but he didn't make my top 16. I think he's a better QB2 than he is a QB1 when it comes to like pocket awareness and, being able to make plays under pressure and be I'm just not sold. But I do think he's one of the fun stories of the last few years. He's done nothing in the playoffs. And he's an under 500 quarterback as a starter. So I that's why he's off my list.
Yeah, kind of same. While he certainly has had a, career resurgence in Seattle, it's, again, that sometimes when you go to that new team, it kind of reverts back to the Gino that we know. So we'll see. I mean, I'm certainly rooting for him. But all right, Dives, number 14 for you. What do you got?
I went there. CJ Stroud. I'm. Yeah. Am I the lowest on CJ Stroud? Wow. Okay.
Sure are.
Yeah. I thought we learned a lot about, CJ Stroud. It was one hell of a sophomore slump, 28th in EPA per play. They didn't really have a great run game. He really struggled under pressure. Everything just kind of fell apart there. He had a good season, but not a great season. I think the tape was out. I mean, he's just your quintessential example of a sophomore quarterback when there's more tape out there for defensive coordinators. I'm hopeful he turns it around in 2025. We'll see what Jaden Daniels does. I know we'll be talking about him shortly. But CJ Stroud, I just, again, need to see more evidence.
Gotcha. All right. David, you had him number 10.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels, Truthers, C 2024, CJ Stroud. I think that's a very alarming stat for a lot of people. But to be fair to him, he had an abysmal offensive line. You talk about his pressure to sack rate. He was sacked 39 times as a rookie, 63 times last year. And a lot of that has nothing to do with his talent. I think he's a very talented quarterback. He finished 2024 off very good. He delivered in the playoffs and beat a quarterback head-to-head that's going to be 5 spots higher probably than on everybody else's list here, a top 8 quarterback in the playoffs against the Chargers. So, I think he has a lot of the talent. He had a bad season. The Eagles hopefully don't have to use one of his offensive linemen this year themselves, or you might be seeing some of the same woes. But yeah, he was under constant pressure, and it's very hard to operate like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think when I look at CJ Stroud, yeah, I think of obviously sometimes that sophomore season is a little bit hard to adjust. Certainly doesn't help that his top 3 or 4 receivers. I can't remember if it was the 4th receiver too. All spent a decent time out with injuries, so he's constantly shifting lineups. And like you said, the offensive line was pretty abysmal, especially on the right hand side. So I look for him to kind of have a bounce back and kind of maybe meet in the middle after such a great rookie season, and kind of we'll see more of a true CJ. Shane, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got him at 9. Last year was tough. A lot of receiver injuries, abysmal offensive line. For me, I know what I saw in 2023 in his rookie season, and it was so good. And then the fall off to last year, and the stat was going around about like Mahomes' pressure rate in the Super Bowl was basically the same as Stroud's for the entire season. And so look how Mahomes played in that game, and you understand Stroud. Now, there's some mitigating things like the Eagles doing it, just rushing 4, being able to drop more guys into coverage, and that's not necessarily the case across the whole season. But the Texans' O-line was abysmal. It's going to be even worse this year. Their response to we have one of the worst O-lines in the NFL was to trade the all-pro left tackle. So that doesn't make any sense. Never made any sense. And I think it's going to be a rough year again this year for the Texans because they've not taken the O-line seriously. But I just know what I saw a year ago, or 2 years ago. I really believe in Stroud as a player, and hopefully the Texans fix that O-line before they ruin him.
Yeah. Very, very sure. Shane, we'll stick with you. Give us your number 14.
Yeah, so my number 14 is Jared Goff. And with Jared Goff, like, I have concerns. He's played with the 2 of the better play callers in the NFL his entire career, and Sean McVay, who didn't want him anymore, and then Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's gone now. And I think Jared Goff has improved a lot as a player since where he was when he came into the league, or, since McVay decided he didn't want him anymore. And I just think he's going to struggle to maintain that this year with a new play caller, unless you strike gold again with a play caller. But I think he is a solid player. I think he and Brock Purdy are in similar situations in terms of their physical giftings and the way they've had things schemed for them. And Goff's just further down that developmental road because he's been in the league for a long time. I don't think he's going to fall apart or anything, but I just think his better days are probably behind him now that he's separated from Ben Johnson.
Gotcha. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. Dives, you had him at number 11.
Yeah, same tier as Purdy and Prescott. Like I feel like this is a huge year for him to show that, you know, he can get it done. You know, he was second in EPA per play last year. Looked flustered in the playoffs. But this is your quintessential good but not great quarterback, helped by ideal surroundings. And whether or not he could do it without Ben Johnson, I mean, that's got to be the storyline for Detroit.
Gotcha. David, number 11.
Yeah, pretty much everything the fellas said. Jared Goff is what Brock Purdy aspires to be, in my opinion. That's pretty much his ceiling. And, you know, he's been one of the top quarterbacks past 2 years, and now Ben Johnson is going to be with Caleb Williams. So we're going to see how much of it was tied to Ben and how much of it was tied to Jared. But I think if you have watched Jared over his career, you already know the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love the weapons in Detroit. The run game, especially, I just think it makes his job that much easier. And yeah, I think he'll just be consistent and kind of, you know, the way he's been for the last couple of years. And I think he'll show that a lot of that was him. So, all right, Dives, you're number 13.
I went with Shane's dude, Justin Herbert, and kind of following suit. You know, when are we going to see Justin Herbert take that next step? You know, take that next hurdle. And it's his second year with Jim Harbaugh. He's got more help. Trey Harris. I think Mekhi Becton's there now, so that'll be interesting to see if he can get it done finally. Played a lot better in the second half of the year than he did in the first half. 12th in EPA per play with not a lot of help on offense. But he's down on my list because I'm still waiting.
Yeah, that is quite a low ranking. Shane, anything to say about that?
Yeah, I've got Herbert at number 8. I think Herbert is an incredibly gifted quarterback, and he excels in processing. He's got a ridiculous arm. He hasn't been in some of the best situations in Los Angeles, but he's also just had some really bad games in the postseason that really taint that a little bit. I will say last year, I was actually really impressed because they brought in a new coach. They shed a lot of salary and things, and I thought they were going to be atrocious. They were a decent football team. I think that Herbert, especially with a little postseason success, can get into my top 5. But unfortunately, and I hate to do it because I love the guy, I had to drop him some this year. Just over the long haul, the lack of sustained success.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Now I know I certainly have him the highest at number 6, but I certainly, what up, David? You know, I certainly do still believe in his skill set. You know, I like what they're trying to do there in Los Angeles, and yeah, another weapon. You know, I love me some Trey Harris. So, and Quentin Johnson finally, you know, decided to learn how to play football last year, which is great. So yeah, it's he's got some weapons, and yeah, hopefully we'll see what he can do with them. And like I said, I think you're right though. If this is going to be another year of, you know, playing well in the regular season and then failed postseason success, you know, he's going to drop pretty significantly on my list. So, all right, David, what's your thoughts on Justin Herbert?
Pretty much the same. If you take him in a vacuum and remove high stress situations, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. His passer rating during the regular season probably tops Patrick Mahomes, if my memory is correct. He's an electric quarterback, but he fails miserably in high stress situations. It is his second year with Harbaugh. And like you mentioned, he does have weapons. He has one of my favorite go-to guys in Lad McConkey. You mentioned Quentin Johnson, Mike Williams, Trey Harris is on the roster. I mean, he's got just a plethora of weapons to help him. He is 8th on my list, and that's kind of like my last tier of quarterbacks that where I don't think teams should still be looking for another quarterback. Like my top 8, I think pretty much have found their quarterback. Everybody under that, maybe you could argue down to 10, but pretty much probably are still, peeking, looking here and there for a QB. But I think he's potentially could be 5th on this list next year or something. I mean, he's got that kind of talent.
Yeah, for sure. David, we'll stay with you. Let's go to your number 12 quarterback. Who you got?
No clue.
All right.
You
have Jordan Love.
You don't have to show.
I'm a little slow on the copy paste.
All right.
I got you,
Jordan
though.
Love, buddy.
Jordan Love. Yeah, he looked really good a couple years ago. Like his PFF calls it like a big time throw rate, like just completely plummeted. His 2024 was startlingly worse than his 2023, and a lot of that was just that big plays that he had. He's another guy who, against top tier competition hasn't exactly looked the best in my opinion. So he's the kind of guy who needs to revert back to how he was in 2023. And until he does that, he's kind of just one of these middling guys, like where he's at 12. A guy who can lead a team, but is he going to win championships? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Dives, you also had him at number 12.
Yeah, same stuff. I feel like the media really overhypes him. Like they put up some really impressive regular season numbers, the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. Like I feel like he's more theoretical than a championship caliber quarterback. He makes a lot of mistakes. Yeah, he makes some fun plays, but he doubles that in turnover worthy plays and 83 quarterback rating in the playoffs, 1 and 2, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in the playoffs. I feel like he's just overhyped quite a bit. So he's in that same tier as like Herbert, Love, Goff, Purdy, that I'm just waiting for them to get over that hurdle.
Gotcha. All right, Shane.
Yeah, Jordan Love, like he's been around forever, but he's really only started 2 seasons, and he's had some really good stretches. Overall, he's just been inconsistent, and so I think he's a really gifted player. I don't know what he will end up stabilizing at, but I think his ceiling is really high, especially for a guy that I don't think has ever had a true number 1 wide receiver. And so I still don't think they have a true number 1 wide receiver, and that's going to continue to be an issue for them. But I feel like the book is less written on him than it is most. I think he's 27 or 28, most 27 or 28-year-old quarterbacks. So I've got him at number 11, and he's a guy that I could see jumping up this list significantly if he just smooths out some of those valleys, because the highs are really high.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. The knock on him is the consistency, and I think the fact that he's been doing this with, as you said, Shane, not a true number 1. He's got a collection of guys, and they're just they're not terrible wide receivers, but there's just no there's no stud there for him to really get the ball to. So I do like Love, and I think he'll continue to get better. And as you said, he's he may be 27, but yeah, he's really only played a few seasons. So I look for him to continue to grow. So all right, so I guess we're gonna stick with me for my number 12. I had Mr. Baker Mayfield. I had him as a guy in his career has certainly had his ups and downs, and I think the last couple of years he's been pretty consistent. Once he got to Tampa Bay, I mean, I think having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, not bad options there as your number 1 and 2, and they drafted Emeka Buka, so obviously loads and loads and loads of weapons. And I just think he is somebody that's not going to, throw for 500 yards in a game and take over, but he is going to be extremely consistent. He is going to get the ball to his wide receivers, and he's going to win the games he needs to win. So that's just kind of where I had Baker. I mean, you guys obviously all had him a little higher, but David, why don't you tell us why you had him at number 9?
He's a really good example of what can happen when you go to the right situation. He had one of the more remarkable career adjustments that you'll ever see. I think he's pretty much assuaged all the fears that anybody's had. And he has great weapons. And despite the fact that this is his third offensive coordinator in 3 years with Tampa, like you mentioned, Emeka Egbuka, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Bucky Irvin, Cade Otton, is that how you pronounce his last name, at tight end?
Yep.
I mean, they just have a plethora of weapons, man, and it's a pretty decent line. I mean, not like the Eagles, but it's a really good offensive line that can, extend plays for him and help him in the pocket. And I think he's shown, what he can do. He's turned that franchise around as well. As much as he's turned his career around, he helped turn them around too.
Yeah, that's certainly a great point. Dibs, what about you, bud?
Yeah, big Baker guy. Jared Goff should kind of look at Baker in terms of adjusting to a new coordinator. He's done so. He had 4,500 passing yards, 41 touchdowns. He's a guy you bet on. And when he's playing within himself and getting the ball out fast, he's excellent. 6 in EPA per play last year. And that's the key, playing within himself, because at times he can break out of the pocket too early and try and extend plays, and that's not really his game. So I'm a big believer in Baker Mayfield.
All right, Shane?
Yeah, he's number 10 for me, and I didn't think I would ever be sitting here talking about Baker Mayfield as a top 10 quarterback again. He's had a wild career arc, but what he's been able to – I mean, this is a guy that was cut by the Carolina Panthers a couple of seasons ago, and he's found a home in Tampa, and he was really good last year, and he's led the Buccaneers to the playoffs back-to-back seasons. They knocked off the Eagles, mercifully ending their 2023 season last year, and if I recall correctly, they almost won that next playoff game. And this year in the playoffs, I thought he played well. They didn't win, but he played well against Washington. They took Washington to the brink. And so I never would have believed after he left Cleveland that he would be a top 10 quarterback, but that's where I've got him, number 10 overall.
There you go. All right, moving right along to my number 8. I had Matthew Stafford. Listen, I think he's certainly getting up there long in the tooth. He still has, some great weapons there in LA. But, I've never really been a Matthew Stafford guy, and maybe that shows in my rankings here. But I'm just kind of expecting, the decline to kind of happen, even though, they took the Eagles right to one of the last plays there in the link in the playoffs. So, losing Cooper Kupp, gaining Devontae Adams, they just, continue to replace, and their defense is getting better. So that always helps a team out. But yeah, listen, I think regardless, Stafford is still a model of consistency, and, he utilizes his weapons really well. So, Shane, thoughts on Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, Stafford is one of those guys that the 1-year timeline really matters for. Because if you're looking at a 3-year timeline, I'm out on Stafford. I would be dropping him down a lot.
Sure.
Questions about his health is going to linger as long as he plays. But, I mean, and maybe this is looking at it through an Eagles lens, but this is the quarterback that almost eliminated the Eagles from the playoffs. Nobody else got close. Stafford is a guy that terrifies me every time he's on the Eagles schedule because he can go nuclear. And look at what Puka Nacua has become. And I mean, Nacua is a great receiver, but he was a day 3 pick that came in and set rookie receiving records. And a lot of that goes to Stafford. And last year he was doing it with the deterioration of Cooper Kupp. And I just think Stafford's incredibly talented. And I love watching the guy play, and I hope he's not on the Eagles schedule very often, but I hope he plays for a lot longer.
All right. Dabs?
Yeah, same with what Shane said. Just a great arm talent. Scares the death out of me. A guy that can throw for 400 yards and light you up in a moment. But I mean, I give him respect. He's 5-2 in the last 7 postseasons starts, and he deserves to be my number 7.
All right. Davey thinks Stafford's about to fall off due to one Jalen Carter. So, David, you had him highest at number 6.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, he was one play away from probably running his team to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they had what it took to top off the Chiefs, but they were a play away from topping off the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. He does have a great arm. He's a elite processor. He's doing all of that behind what I think is an average, and that's being generous, offensive line. I don't think it's that great. He utilizes his weapons, Puka. Now he's got Devontae Adams, and they got Kyron Williams and Tyler Higbee, and he's made all of them look great. And that's what great quarterbacks do. So he's one of the best, and I think in the NFC that he stays healthy, the Rams are the biggest threat to the Eagles going back to the Super Bowl.
All right. We'll stay with David here. His number 7 is Jaden Daniels. Talking about Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I think I'm a little surprised I'm lowest on him, but I think that the sophomore slump is real. I mean, I think that once a team in the NFL has 17 games of film on you, that things change quite a bit. I thought that he would produce really well when he came into the league because I just believed he had a high floor. And he even exceeded my expectations, but I don't know how high the ceiling is. I know from living in the area of DC that the sky is the limit for every fan. They think that they should have beat us this past season. They still can't seemingly accept it. They think they have an elite top 2 quarterback. He was clutch. He does show great poise. And he's arguably had one of the best rookie seasons in the past 20 years. I mean, I don't know how far you might have to go back. I don't know. Dan Marino, I don't know. But he was really, really good. But I do think as a whole, the Commanders have taken a step back this season. I'd be surprised to see him duplicate it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I expect a slight step back. And, again, defense is always catching up. That's why I'm not ready to kind of put him in the upper echelon just yet. Dives?
There's so many reasons to like Jaden Daniels, but overall, I was just so impressed with his poise. His poise and leadership were off the charts last year, and I am ecstatic to see what he does in 2025. I'm rooting for him.
Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not rooting for him because he's in the Eagles division, but
no, I want all the smoke. I want that rivalry, man. That's good for us.
Yeah, good rivalry is something, but I can't root for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic. Better than I expected in a not very good situation, I might add. Washington wasn't a great situation, and they've improved what's around him, bringing in Laramie Tunsil. And I was very impressed with his scrambling ability and his deep ball. Those were the two things. Now, there was a lot of horizontalness to their offense, and we'll see if teams adjust to that. I think that the cautionary tale here is CJ Stroud, who is the guy that I had top 5 after last year. And I see a step back coming for Daniels this year. And it's just because it's so hard to have that rookie season and then follow that up. But I think he's an incredibly talented player. It's a small sample size. I need to see a bigger sample of it. But, if he turns in a performance like that another year or two, he's definitely going to be top 5 for me.
Yeah. All right, Shane, we'll stick with you, and you get the honors. Number 5.
All right. My number 5 is Jalen Hurts. And I think there is a big 4 of quarterbacks, and I think Jalen Hurts is the top guy in that next tier. And, we can say a lot of things about the system that he played, the players that are around him. He's got a really good offensive line, always has had. He's got Saquon Barkley now. They haven't always had that running game. For what it's worth, but they have Saquon Barkley. They've got a really good duo of receivers. he's changed offensive coordinators every year. And so that's something that's a little different from Brock Purdy's situation. It's also so different how integral he is to their running game. He does so much for the running game that doesn't show up on a box score. And I think that plays out huge. The poise that he brings to the sideline and the leadership to the team. And I mean, he's the perfect quarterback for the Eagles. He fits that culture perfectly. But you look at these other guys on the list, and there's none of those guys that I would take over him. I mean, you could make an argument for Jaden Daniels if he sustains it, but it's a small sample size. Hurts doesn't have some of the arm talent that Stafford and Herbert do, but he brings the mobility while not sacrificing a ton. He can hit the deep ball. And so I just think Jalen Hurts is really good. I would have had him in like that 5 to 8 range last year, but I think he solidified himself as that number 5 guy for me this last season.
Dobbs, you had him the highest, number 3.
What can I say? I mean, this is a dude that's got nearly a 70% win percentage. He's 6-3 in the playoffs. 2 Super Bowls of just putting up massive numbers. All he does is win, and that's why I knocked down a lot of these guys on my list. He's at number 3 for me.
All right, David.
Yeah, in addition to everything Shane mentioned about his arm, his deep ball, etc., the biggest point he made, in my opinion, was that of what he brings to the running game. It's unlike anything any other quarterback in the NFL does. There's a reason in 2022, Miles Sanders ran for the most yards of his career. In 23, DeAndre Swift ran for the most yards of his career. And even Saquon Barkley in 24 runs for the most in his career. And everybody attributes it to the offensive line, but it's not just the offensive line. You can go back to a game against the Commanders when Jalen Hurts got knocked out in the first quarter of the game. And I can't remember the rushing numbers, but something like Barkley had 150 yards rushing in that game, and 125 of them were when Jalen Hurts was in the game, 25 after he got knocked out.
Yeah.
It's that big of a difference. It is just astounding. And there's an argument to be made that he has outplayed who's probably the best quarterback in the NFL twice on the biggest stage in football. And that goes a long way. He's a winner. And, a lot of people don't like hearing that, but it does matter. And it's what's separating him between being 5 and somebody like Justin Herbert being 8.
Yeah, big time. Let's go over to Dives. Who's your number 5 since you had Hurts at number 3? You are muted, my friend.
What's my Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow is my number 5. Had a really good year last year, 8th in EPA per play, 2nd in success rate, but also had one of the league's worst defenses. And that's the biggest reason why he's in my top 5. I think he's an elite talent, and he just needs to put it together. Number 5.
All right, David.
Yeah, I think where do I have him? 4. I think he has the talent to be as high as number 2. I think there's only one quarterback that's like completely in their own tier. I think could lead, the next tier. He hasn't entered a season completely healthy, and that's been a big problem. If he's able to do that, and his offensive line gives him some time, and the defense lets him hang into some games there, he's got really good weapons. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Even Sydney's brother, Chase Brown, down there. He stays healthy, and the defense can keep him in some games. He could end up being number 2 on this list. He's got that much talent.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's surrounded by talent. The Bengals obviously clearly don't give 2 craps about their defense, but despite that, he always leads them to the playoffs, and unfortunately, just can't seem to get over Patrick Mahomes when it matters the most. But
was he in the Super Bowl his rookie season? It was his rookie year.
That
right?
was it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was amazing day one.
Yeah.
No. He was injured most of his rookie year. I guess it was his first full year he played.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing what he did.
Yeah, the rookie year ended with a torn ACL. I think he was like 2-7 as a starter. I think it was the next year.
Right. Was that the Rams one?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2022. That was actually his third year. No, that was
don't
his
sound
second
right.
year. Yeah, it was his second year. It was in 2022,
Gotcha.
but it was the 2021 season.
All right. But yeah, either way, he's certainly
Needs to come into the season at full strength, and
agreed. Needs to get over the Mahomes hump and get his team back to the Super Bowl, honestly. Or he's probably just peaked at number 4. So, all right, Dives, who is your number 4, by the way?
Here we go. I went with Patrick Mahomes, just for the smoke, because I knew we were all pretty much unanimous across the board. Yeah, Hurts made him look silly, and that's why I put Hurts over him. I think Mahomes is sensational. His ability to make something out of nothing is elite. I also do think, call me crazy, Shane, but we don't talk about the Kansas City Chiefs defense enough. I think there's been there's a lot there that he's benefited from, the system, all that kind of stuff. So I want to hear your thoughts on the idea of Mahomes out of the top 3.
I think that's insane. The Chiefs defense is really good. Patrick Mahomes isn't working with a lot on offense. So their offensive line was a disaster. They don't have a lot in terms. I mean, he made a Super Bowl last year. I think it was last year with Juju Smith-Schuster as his leading receiver. And so his stats, he's statistically fallen off. I think it's nearly entirely related to the supporting cast around him. He's the number 1 quarterback in the league for me. I do think there's maybe a narrowing of the gap between him and my number 2, but he's easily number 1 for me.
Okay. All right. Well, I had him number 3. I kind of a little bit on the Dives level, but I just I'm just kind of more of a fan of the other 2 that I have in front. I don't think there's much separation between the top 3. But yeah, I don't know. I just think, and maybe I'm hoping that the Eagles defense broke him. Oh, well, there you go. Maybe the playoffs is what I'm thinking of. So anyway, David, number 3.
yeah, I think he's in a tier of his own. I have him 1, obviously, like Shane does. I do think it's the slimmest of margins where he could end up lower on this list. I don't think having him 3rd is crazy, but I think that's a year down the road. Somebody's got to knock him off the perch over there, and you can have all these other quarterbacks in the AFC, in that same conversation: Burrow, Jackson, and Allen. But until one of them can actually beat him, I can't put them above him. So that's where I leave him.
All right. There you go. David, who do you have for number 3?
And furthermore, he does that, like Shane said, with a crappy supporting cast.
Sure.
Number 3, I don't know. It's either Lamar or good Lamar. Coming off another great season, man. One of the highest, rated quarterbacks in the league again, and gets bumped in the playoffs again. His postseason record is a blemish on an otherwise astounding career thus far. And until he can, overcome some of that, I don't know how you raise him ahead of a player like Patrick Mahomes or even a Josh Allen, who seem to be the 2 who battle it out to kind of go to the rights for the Super Bowl lately. And Lamar Jackson also struggled against the Eagles last year in a big game. So he's done really well, and I'm not comparing him by any means to whoever you said was a stat patter earlier, but he does he definitely struggles more when the talent gets harder, which a lot of guys do. But the greats, normally if you're going back in history and naming the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league, they have playoff wins, they have championships, and he hasn't been able to do that yet.
Yeah, listen, I think Lamar, talent-wise, is one of the more talented quarterbacks, and yeah, he has great regular season success, and he has taken his team to the playoffs, and man, every single time it seems like he just falls short, and it's by the slimmest of margins. He's usually losing last second, or because the defense gave up something, or whatever it is. But yeah, it's just he certainly has the hardware to prove that he's a top talented quarterback. It's just he needs the team hardware to back it up. So
He's had 7 interceptions in the postseason.
Hmm.
3-5 record. I mean, that's normally not an elite quarterback.
all right, Shane, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just think Lamar is awesome. It's a travesty that he didn't win the MVP this last year. Threw for 450 more yards than Allen, threw for 13 more touchdowns in the same amount of games, rushed for 400 more yards than Allen. I think they're both fantastic players, but Lamar is number 2 for me, and Allen comes in behind at number 3.
All right. And last but not least, we have Josh Allen. Shane, I'll stick with you. You have him the lowest at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's fantastic, but I can't put him over Lamar or Mahomes at this point. So it's unfortunate. Both of these guys would probably have Super Bowl rings if Patrick Mahomes didn't exist. We can call them playoff chokers, but Lamar was in an AFC championship game 2 years ago, and they lost. And Josh Allen has lost in the playoffs multiple times where he left the field with the lead or a tie, and the defense couldn't get it done. So I think both of these guys are all-timers, but unfortunately they exist in the same time and division as Patrick Mahomes, and that's made life tough for him.
Yeah. David, you had him number 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason the MVP award went to him as opposed to Lamar Jackson is because Josh Allen lost both of his top 2 receivers last season, and he put up basically his career numbers. It was his best complete season, and I think that went a long way to the voters. I agree with everything Shane said. Again, in a world where you don't have to top Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Burrow, Lamar, they all probably are competing for multiple Super Bowls, and that was the difference, and that was the reason I had Patrick number 1, because he has outplayed all of them when it mattered the most.
Yeah, there you go. And Dibes.
No, nothing to add.
Okay, love it. Well, I had him number 1. I think, like I said, it's the slimmest of margins between the top 3 for me. I just, again, I'm probably more of a fan of his game, his style, and kind of what he does on and off the field. So that's why I just kind of have him as the slight favorite as my number 1. So
I'd have him at 1 if he was better at the tush push. Not being able to convert those into playoffs really,
oh man,
really downgrades him.
Yeah, you might be onto something. So. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. This is our first of many top 16 rankings as we head into the 2025 season that we are going to be doing this offseason. Here's our quarterbacks. We'll post these up on socials so that you guys can, complain about having this guy here and that guy there. So, but that'll be fun. But before we get on out of here, Dives, do you have anything to add, anything to say, anything to promote? Well wishes to anybody, whatever you want to say. Floor's yours.
Join us on Party on Broad right after this. We're doing a draft of the all-time worst coaches and general managers in Philly sports history. So that'll be a little more lighter kind of show. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Shane, same thing for you, bud.
Yeah, first of all, I like this suggestion from Brett Eclipse. We should do a tracker of how many Eagles end up in the top 10 of each list. We can definitely do that.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that.
We should do that for sure.
Yeah, just be subscribed to the Eagles Pinpool Network. We're starting to ramp content back up, and then If you want to do more than that, you can consider heading over to my Patreon with Johnny at patreon.com/ontheshane page. We're going to be recording our monthly mailbag and some more rookie all 22 watch alongs. So if you want to know some more about some of the Eagles rookie draft picks, you can come hang out there and we'll have some of that stuff up later this week.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Make sure if you guys already have not, to subscribe to the Eagles Pin Poll on all the socials, Facebook, X, and specifically YouTube. David, the floor is yours. What do you got, bud?
Yeah, just reiterate, just make sure you're following the Eagles Pinpool Network and everybody else on this panel. There's 5 weeks before training camp starts, and everybody here puts out good content to help you get through the lull of that time period. You can find anything I do at my X handle there, PHL Eagle News, everything else at Philly Sports Network. I just spent some time covering the Virginia Tech Hokies and doing some scouting for an organization with them. I released a piece today, kind of like the one I did about a week ago with the Clemson team that I spent some time with. Check that out if you have the time and if you're into the draft stuff. But other than that, just give everybody here a follow, man. Get you through the rough 5-week period before training camp ramps back up, and then we can all bitch and fuss about backup tight ends, running backs, and everything else everybody loves to complain about.
There you go. Gotta love it. Yeah. Like I said, this is the start of this series. Next week, we will be doing running backs. So stay tuned for the top 16 running backs list. So we'll bring that to you next Monday. Now we have, for this brief period, we are now going to be on Mondays at 8 o'clock. So adjust your schedule accordingly. So yeah, right. So that is going to be it for us. Thank you all so much for all the wonderful comments, for making fun of Dibes for his awful list, and of course joining us as always. We will see you guys next Monday on the Eagles Pin Pull Network. So for myself, for Dives, for Shane, for David, we will see you guys next week. Go Birds.